Okay, so now it says we're recording.
Mm-hmm.
So if I just asked you, what did you eat for lunch today?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can answer me so I can get a sense of our level,
right.
like if I have it too high or too low.
I had a BLT sandwich and a Cobb salad with salmon.
That sounds good.
It was very
From
good.
Healthy Harvest? Where did
No,
you
no,
go?
no. I went to Riverfront Grill.
Ooh.
Yeah,
That sounds good. Did you have a meeting or you just went by yourself?
just went. It was
Okay.
lunchtime.
Well,
Yeah, it was just lunchtime.
that works.
Works
Okay.
every time.
So are you comfortable?
Very comfortable.
Okay. Does it feel like it's, because you don't have to lean into it,
Okay,
but
yeah.
have you ever done a podcast before?
Yes, kinda. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
So I gotta shake out my jitters.
yeah.
Okay, so we're recording.
Yeah, we're on air.
We're on the air.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you, Ashley, for sitting down with me.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for coming to the office. You said this is your first time being here.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to have you. And I want to, give you your props for taking your show on the road.
Yeah.
You have this looking like the studio now.
Yeah.
I like the whole setup.
Yeah.
It's legitimate now.
It does look legit.
So I want to give you your props for that.
And I think it's recording, but my little red recording button isn't going. So but I think it's recording. Hold on. Let me just make sure I'm all plugged in.
Yeah, we'll
See?
work out I see it. Well, now I see the red light.
Yeah, it's there, but for a second it disappeared. So, okay. But now it's like consistently red. So let's start over.
Okay, yeah, let's start. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Ashley, so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here and really happy you're going to be one of the first guests on Rock Island Line.
That's an honor. That's an honor. And, once again, I want to thank you for coming down to the office. You said it's your first time being down here. It's practically my first time being down here.
Yeah.
So we're learning all at the same time. And I thank you. I know you had a difficult time taking your show on the road. You have all the setup here. You have the office looking like a legitimate studio right now.
Exactly.
We got lights, we got phones, we got microphones, the whole setup. So it's interesting. And it was fun seeing you do all that stuff. I am nowhere near an engineer.
Well, either am I,
Yeah.
and we're the same age.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
for me
yeah.
to figure all this out was,
Yeah.
I think it's probably good for my brain.
Yeah, we've
So-
been knowing each other a long time. Went to school with each other, graduated with each other, and everything in between.
Yeah.
We've it was a time to where we didn't see each other other than class reunions. But now, now we're seeing more of each other, and that's good for Rock Island.
Yeah.
We're stepping out, we're getting active. We're 80s babies.
Yeah.
It's our time to step into not only leadership positions, but senior leadership positions. And, just take the mantle from our elders and the people that, came before us. This is our time, Annika.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad to be sharing it with you.
Yes,
It's pretty
yes,
exciting.
Yes.
Yeah, so thanks for having me in your beautiful office here, and I'll try to get some pictures of you before I leave, in your element here. But
and we even have the red phone, so
Yep.
let people know, hey, I'm here on the job.
Yeah.
If it's an emergency, call the mayor. So
Yeah, exactly.
that makes everything legitimate as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so I thought maybe I'm hoping to interview you more than once. So I thought today we could just, for people who might not know you as well, get a sense of
Who Ashley is.
who you are and what
Yeah.
connects you to Rock Island. And,
Yeah.
kind of like, where did you grow up? How long has your family been a Rock Island family? Yeah.
My grandparents moved to Rock Island maybe in the early 60s. My grandparents, they are from Arkansas, actually. And, what originally brought them up here was work. It was a lot of, manufacturing going on. And, this area, the Midwest area compared to the South, it was more promising, if you will, especially during those times for African Americans. So, my grandparents, they moved up here with a group of other family members, and they came up here, they started a family, they joined the union, had, put in their time, with Deere, with other factories that were here during that time. And about 20 years later, 20 something odd years later, here I come. When my grandparents came, they had 5 children here in the Quad Cities. My mom and her brothers and sisters. So, and I'm my mom's only child.
Oh,
Yeah, a lot of
wow.
people don't know that I'm an only child. I'm an only
Yeah.
child, and for a good amount of years, about 12 years, I was the only grandchild. So Ashley had it made.
You did.
Ashley had it made.
Yeah, you got a lot
Yeah,
of attention and
yeah.
probably a lot poured into
Yeah,
you. And
Ashley had it made, and that put me, like, even socially, kind of on another level. It didn't matter the income levels of my parents or my grandparents, but being an only child, it kind of, whatever was left, I had that. I didn't have to divvy that up between brothers and sisters or even cousins.
yeah.
So it was just all about Ashley. So, if we had $5, Ashley had $4, and
Wow.
yeah, and like I said, even socially, that allowed me to somewhat level up, even amongst my peers, because we were middle class, but as a spoiled only child, that kind of makes you like a little watered down rich kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so I did notice that privilege, that advantage. Even when I was living it, I noticed that. So I'm fortunate for that.
What elementary school did you go to?
I went to Francis Willard.
Okay.
I'm a road runner.
Okay.
Now they changed the mascot, but hey, I am a road runner. And after that, I went to Edison Eagles, and as after that, we seen each other at Rocky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was your experience like in elementary school in the in Rock Island?
It was it was very, very good for me, because like I said, being an only child, by nature, I'm an introvert. I like my alone time, and that was my first time being introduced to the world, if you will. So a lot of my original friends, my original best friends, I bring it up, they knew me pretty much before I knew myself. So I love that time. During my...
What do you mean when you say that? They knew you before you knew yourself. Can
Well,
you say more about that?
Yeah, sure I can. Because as an only child, I didn't have anything to bounce off of. I didn't have anything to test out my theory or even my voice, what I sound like. I didn't have brothers and sisters to talk about me, or, hey man, you can't wear that to school, or no, that was my first time getting out in the world. So my peers and the people around me, they were my siblings. And I had to learn a lot about myself, because we don't know how the outside world perceives us. We don't even know what we look like to the outside world, and I had to step out into the world to even learn that part.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot about myself in elementary school. So I bring that up because those that was the place to where you just develop friendship for life. And this is another funny thing. Your kindergarten teacher kind of dictates who your best friends are going to be. And that's practically by the original seating chart. Whoever she places you by will hey, this is your friend now, hey, this is who you talk to.
Yeah.
And that is how friendships first develop, from the kindergarten seating chart. So
I'm guessing the answer is yes, but are you still friends with your friends from elementary school?
I am, because a lot of those friends didn't move away. A lot of those friends, we followed each other, up to high school, and even in high school, a lot of original friends, even for everybody. Those walks of life kind of like went different ways, but we always had that foundational connection. And it's funny because stepping out even into the campaign, I got support from people traditionally to where I wouldn't have originally got support from. And it was all due to those school connections.
Yeah.
Like, man, hey, I'm this way now, but I know Ashley. Hey, I'm doing this now, but man, Ashley's a good dude. Or I cashed in on, those relationships and those connections.
Yeah.
And that's nothing that you could even fake. maybe cash in is the wrong word, because I didn't like take advantage of anything or anybody, but relationships are real.
Yeah.
They're real. Blood is thicker than water.
Yeah.
And those friendships, those relationships, that's the blood in the game. That's the blood. So political views, different even ideologies, after people grow up, blood, there's still things that are thicker than those, that will shine through those. And I learned that, like I said, even on the campaign trail.
Yeah. I mean, my recollection of you in high school was, if you were in a room, other people in that room would feel accepted or safe, or that they had somebody who would look out for them or talk to them. You've always been a very inclusive, kind person.
Naturally, and even those things, there was a time where I was the class clown, but in those senses, I wasn't trying to do anything. I wasn't overdoing it. It didn't cost me any energy. I was just in my natural flow of things. And a lot of that has to do, like I said, with my upbringing, because I just wasn't raised by a single person. My mom had me when she was very young. She was actually 16. And when I came home from the hospital, I came home with her parents. So she was the oldest out of 5 children. So I had some aunts and uncles who were older than me, but practically my older siblings as well.
Yeah.
Coming up in the house, I was raised by my whole village.
Yeah.
My whole village, and even then I was a send off, if you will. That's why I said, I'm a natural public servant, because I've been serving my household for a long time. And when you have older aunts and uncles that are between 10 to 12 years older than you, it's not like your aunts and uncles. It's like, hey, big brother, big sister, especially when you're raised, in the same household. Because when I was a kid, they were kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were only a generation ahead of you.
Yeah.
My brother is 10 years older than me.
Same thing. It would be no difference from your older brother than my uncle being 10 years older than me. No difference at all. Yeah.
What do you think of your experience going through schools, the Rock Island schools? Because I think we both have, well, they're sophomores now, right?
Yeah.
My daughter and your daughter?
And my daughter, she'll be a senior coming up this year.
Oh, she'll be a senior.
Yeah, she'll be a senior.
So we both have kids at Rocky.
Yes.
And, you've gone through the Rock Island schools. What do you think of your experience from Francis Willard through Rocky?
It's something I like to brag on now more so than any other time, because I've never been formally educated. So I always bring up the fact that my education from Rock Island High School was good enough to take anyone to any level in life. And I bring that up, because the city, our school system, district, we get a lot of times we get a bad rep on a lot of things. It's a small truth in all stereotypes, but for the most part, we do get a bad rep. We are more culturally diverse than any other time, and that should be added strength, and that strength that we haven't quite tapped into yet.
Yeah.
So I always rep my town, my city.
So you feel like your Rock Island public school education prepared you well for life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. It got me here.
Yeah.
It got me here. Shout out to Rock Island High School.
Do you have any teachers who were influential that you recall that made a difference, or who comes to mind?
In elementary school, like I said, Miss Danforth, she was my kindergarten teacher. So, she set the course of all of our lives pretty much. And then 6th grade, Mr. Good, he was my first, I'm not going to say my first hard-nosed teacher, but he was the first teacher that kind of demanded respect. He was the first teacher that really allowed his personality to teach other than just a curriculum. You know what I mean? So, and really that was at a vital time, because 6th grade is right when you submerge into the world. 7th and 8th grade, somewhat like college, we're changing classes. We're responsible for our schedule now. It was just a complete different world, and that experience that I had with him, even outside the curriculum, was very beneficial to me.
Yeah.
He kind of like instilled fear, like, hey, you can get away with this right here, kid, but when you get over there, down there, like, just like he'll say, they're gonna nail you. I'm like, like, whoa.
You're like,
yeah,
Jesus,
this is serious.
What's gonna happen to me?
This is serious. So,
Yeah.
it like I said, I took that in all healthy ways, and it just prepared me for junior high. And even in addition to all of that, I've always been a student athlete. I've always played sports, even outside of organized, within the school system. I remember, I played baseball for the first time when I was 12. I played soccer, when I was maybe 8 or 9. I've done a lot of things, and then that's always held me accountable.
Yeah.
Always. It's always, in addition to my family and the respect that they had and demanded, sports, and those coaches, they played a big role in offering me something to lose. A lot of times, our kids, go haywire because they don't have anything to lose. No sport, no allowance, no, they have nothing to lose. So when you put that type of mind frame into a child, that can go, one of two ways. And a lot of times I hear recently that hasn't been in the favor of good culture, if you will.
Yeah.
So I've always had something to lose.
Yeah. Yeah, and you had people looking out for you.
Yeah, the whole
when
village.
you've got your teachers, you have your family, but being on a sports team is just another set of people who care about you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not to mention, being able to get some physical activity, not to mention being in a pool, having the opportunity of meeting people not like me, from other parts of towns, from other districts, if you will. And even on the sports scene, you develop a friendship and a type of camaraderie that you normally wouldn't get just even from going to school, or just sticking within the means of your family. So
it's love.
Yeah.
Some of my best memories of high school are my girls' basketball team.
They
shaped me as a person.
Yes.
Their relationships I cherish to this day.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about myself, and you just feel like you belong to something bigger than yourself.
Absolutely. Now you see. So, and even, like to comment on me being raised by my village and the respect that, my parents and my elders, they had and that they demanded, that kept me out of trouble. It kept me, on a straight line, because I had fear, and even in my adult life, it kept me somewhat on a straight line,
Now, if you said that you were watered down rich in your neighborhood, what did you think about me? What was I?
Bona fide, solidified, the real McCoy, things like that.
Yeah.
But
and what was that? I'm curious, just because I know that as I got older, I noticed the landscape of our town, that part of our, that's super cool. That's why we want to live here and raise our children here, is that I think the state of Illinois said that Rock Island High School was the most diverse high school in the state a few years ago.
Yes, it is.
And they're not just talking about race, they're talking about religion, languages spoken, socioeconomic status.
Yeah.
And so if you grow up in Rock Island, you're not growing up with people who are just like you.
Yeah.
You are growing up with the world, with parts of what the whole world looks like.
Exactly. What it offers.
But at some point you become aware of these things, like, I became aware that like, oh, I have a lot more than a lot of the people that I am in community with.
Yeah. And see with me, not to cut you off, but see with me, I learned that difference a whole lot earlier. Because my friends, the people I associated with, during school, after school, they weren't only children. They weren't from a household with structure. They didn't have a male figure in their lives. So even when I was young, I seen that difference. I seen me going to their house or how their shit was run, as opposed to going back home and how my shit was run. And these are my friends. These are people that my best friends, people I'm coming up with. So I've always noticed the difference in that. And like I said, I'll give the glory to God, but I also give glory, to my parents for humbling me and not having me feel like entitled or anything like that. I like I said, I just had a good upbringing, and they instilled in me emotional maturity. Emotional maturity. To know how to stay humble, to know that you may be afforded extra things. One example, some things that I never really had to worry about. I knew people who had a lot of brothers and sisters, and a lot of different extended family members that lived in the same house, a lot of cousins, and just a lot of people in grandma's house. And they would come over to my house, and I would put something in the refrigerator and just put it up there, and doesn't matter if it's later today, tomorrow, when I go back, hey, my stuff is going to be there. But they would literally have to hide it in the refrigerator, or not put it in the refrigerator, because once you put it in there, if it's 10 other people who live in the house, it's not going to be there. So that is just like a mentality of not necessarily like survival of the fittest, but kind of like being in the wild, like even the small things like that. How you would just be like, man, I'm going to put my pop in the refrigerator, and you're not worried about that? Well, if you're putting your favorite drink in the refrigerator, and you're thinking like, man, my drink better be there tomorrow or later, and it's not, and it's traumatizing. And like I said, that's just one small example of even how I noticed small differences, small things like that.
It reminds me of there's something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't.
So it's like a pyramid, and so there's the base of the triangle, and at the top is where you self-actualize. You live out your dreams. You become, you kind of overcome your suffering. You just live a great life. But before you can get to the tip of that triangle, you have to have these other needs met in succession, and the base layer is just food, water, shelter, and then the second layer is safety, being physically safe, psychologically safe, and then as you move up, you can develop self-esteem, you can, and they don't have to be in order like that, but I think you're reflecting on, and I had this experience too, growing up in Rock Island, being around people and just noticing that there was sometimes a lack of the basics, around housing or shelter or food security. And I remember my dad saying to me, and I'm sure he took this from someone else. I don't know where this quote comes from, but everybody's born with life chances and life choices. And so he would kind of say, like, you've hit the jackpot. You grew up in the United States, you're upper middle class, and then you have your life choices. And people who grow up with a lot of life chances, the impact of their life choices isn't so, like, you can afford to make some mistakes, you can afford to, but when you grow up in circumstances that are really where your basic needs aren't getting met, or every choice has to be so on point to make it out of that.
Yeah.
And so, it's not, I don't know, I always thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
So, as you're talking about that, I'm just thinking of something I always thought growing up in Rock Island was like, and I still think it, like when I watch the kids come out of the school, all the potential, all the little kids or junior high kids, high school kids that were so bright and funny and talented. And then you see these trajectories go in different directions and you're like, oh, that was the chances.
Yes.
Because they were making good choices too.
Yes.
Not everybody makes good choices, but I think that's something our city faces is like, how do we take all these kids and make sure that they, have a good future? And because it's just different. You can go to different school districts. Every school district has difference, but you can go to school with kids who have a lot and kids who have very little. You can,
and like a lot of the attention is, we want to be as potent as possible. We want to make the biggest impact on society as possible. And a lot of our time and energy goes towards the kids. But, even when you look at the numbers, even when you look at like the time invested, a lot of times we'll be best served to teach the parents, because they feed the kids, they teach the kids more times than the peers, more times than the schools. It's the parents that nurture and teach the children, and we'll try to teach kids but that's like on a bottom level, teaching just the children things, or trying to save the child but not trying to save the parent. I don't
it's like
get that.
If the child is this little plant inside that we want to grow, you have to look at the container.
They go home and the world that they live in has to reflect their training or what they're being taught, even on the outside, or they're not going to believe it. Like, hey man, I'm hearing that the sky's blue at school, but when you get home, man, the sky's red. Now get upstairs and whatever. But it has to line up. If the sky's really blue and we want that child to know that, then it'll be best for us to let the parent know, hey, the sky's blue. Hey, this is what'll be, beneficial to you and your children, and, presenting the opportunity for some better choices and circumstances and things like that. It's all about the parents, because like I said, we get everything from our parents.
Yeah.
Everything. Yeah.
But we've probably got a lot of parents who are also struggling to meet those basic needs, and that makes it a lot harder.
It's a vicious cycle.
Because I have 4 kids, and I struggle to be a good parent.
It's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle. And see that may be to your standard, but when you look at maybe like the normal standard, they'll be like, hey, the Amelias are some good parents. Like, hey, their kids are eating every day. They are not only in sports, but have transportation to and from. They're not only going to school, but have parental involvement. They're not only doing homework, but having someone check the homework. So it's like with the normal standard, I'm sure you and Jim are exceeding everything, I'm sure.
Did you, when you were graduating or like in high school, were the guidance counselors talking to you about college?
Well,
were you being encouraged to go? Because you joined the Army, right?
Yeah, I did. And from now that conversation from guidance counselors, that kind of was my junior high experience. And I'm going to name drop, Miss Bobby Straps at Edison. She was one of the best components in a lot of our lives. It was like she had the care and the passion of like a parent working there, like an aunt working there at the school, and it just wasn't a job for her. So the direction for college, I opportunities after school. That conversation was like a junior high thing. And in high school, I really wasn't in contact with a lot of guidance counselors because I was always a student athlete. You know, back then in our world is like, hey, you know, how many college letters are you gonna get? Like, hey, where you going to play ball at? But it wasn't necessarily like, hey, you know, you don't have, you know, a sport to play. This has to be you. You know, you have to do it off your own academic merit. I've never really had to think about that.
Yeah.
You know, so like the guidance counseling that hit me. That was more important for me at the junior high level as opposed to high school.
Okay.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
So when you were getting ready to finish out your high school career, did you know what you wanted to do? Did you feel...
Yeah. I knew, I knew, but you know, plans do change. You know, I had actually, you know, a few letters to play at a couple Division II schools, and I was looking forward to, you know, going to play football. But at the time, my girlfriend, you know, she had got pregnant, and you know, with me being an only child, with me being raised a certain way, you know, me going to college, I wouldn't have been able to implement that same upbringing during that time. So I needed to like have a career. I needed to make like money and
be there
and
physically,
be there,
Yeah.
you know, because like I said, you know, that raising a child, that's something that I knew I wasn't going to mess around with because it wasn't messed around with me. And like I said, even at a young age, I knew the benefits that I had, you know, from being raised from my village, from having security to having comfort and warmth and all of those things, you know, the whole pyramid. I had the whole pyramid, and I didn't want my child to have to sacrifice anything like that. So I'm like, you know what? I want to go, you know, to college. I want to play football, you know, fun and exciting, right? To an 18-year-old, right? Yeah, they're like, yeah, I can't wait to get on campus. But you know, the military just seemed like a better option for me, you know, especially with all like the little dainties that they put in front of you. Hey, college money. Hey, travel the world. Hey, you can go anywhere. Hey, get an edge on life. All of those things. I'm like, well, you know, this kind of makes more sense to me right now.
Yeah.
So I didn't go to college. I joined the military, and then that allowed me the opportunity not only to raise my son and be around him, but to provide for him. You know, insurance, everything.
Yeah.
You know, because I was during that time, you know, my mission was to, at the bare minimum, raise my children like I was raised. And I would have had to been even then established, even then like not rich, but hey, you know, hey, we have to make the right choices here as parents.
Yeah.
If you want your son to have the experiences and the benefits and the feeling that you had, college isn't for you right now. Because then, like I said, if I would have went to college, then I would have had to sacrifice a lot of things that I felt were too important to sacrifice.
Well, and I feel like back in that era, college was the goal for everyone. It was kind of like, go to college, go to college, go to college. And it's turned out that for a lot of people, that didn't end up being the end all be all. And so now I think we're really recognizing that young people coming out of school can do really well without going to college.
We were just talking about that. Shout out to Rocky.
Yeah.
A Rock Island education, it'll take you to any level in life.
And they're doing the programs around, you know, the trades and welding and nursing and different things where you could leave school and start working. There's some stat out there that, like, I don't know, when you look at kids going into college from maybe areas where college enrollment among the next generation is lower, among the older generation, that like half of those kids end up just coming out of college with a lot of debt
Yeah.
and not getting jobs
Yeah.
that help them to repay that debt.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
so that push to be like, go to college, ends up kind of burdening them.
Yeah.
They end up getting bad credit because they can't keep up with the student loans because they don't have a job that's going to support the payback. And
No doubt.
so I would say you were ahead of your time and you
Yes,
went the
yes,
right way.
Yes, and I didn't even, you know, it's and ahead of the time, you know, that's a good word, but that's only because I've never been a follower. I've never been like even today, I don't get caught up in fabs. You know, I don't get like the new edition for things coming out, like the new phone or a new car or even like the social media thing. You know, that in the past, 5 years, that's kind of like forcing people to get involved with it. You know, if you want to advertise or promote your business, if you want to stay in touch with your family, something that you have to do. And I've never even followed that really.
Are you going to have somebody manage that for you?
Yeah, I did. I had during my campaign, I had somebody specifically to manage my Facebook page, and even still, I was kind of trying to hold them back.
Yeah.
Hey, I kind of still want to stick to my personality here.
Yeah.
You know, and that's but it all worked out, and and that's something that I've never I've never felt that anything on the outside would force me to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and even coming up, when we were even in high school, speakers and like sound systems, those were a big deal. I've never had Beats in my car.
Yeah.
Never. Never
what
had.
I hear you saying is you weren't looking at your neighbor to say,
Yeah.
what is the cool thing that I should be doing,
Never,
or trying
never.
to look like somebody else or be like
Never.
somebody else. You've always just been
Never.
Ashley.
Ashley. You know, I remember that back, from now into the 90s, you know, we've had concerts, you know, musicians who come to the area, and I've never been to a concert. I'd never, and really even back then when I was younger, what turned me off from it, I'm like, man, people are cracking this up to be a big deal. People are going shopping, like, hey man, what are you wearing to the concert tonight? I'm like, everybody's doing this. Like, oh man, I got to get me something to wear. I'm like, man, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not doing that. And maybe, I don't know, you know, maybe I was lazy. Maybe, you know, I do still procrastinate, but for whatever reason, I never really was turned on by that stuff. You know, never really like went out to clubs. Like, you know, when I was in the military, you know, that gave me a chance to like,
because you were served overseas.
Yeah.
You were in Germany.
Yeah,
And
yeah. So, you know, that gave me a chance to get out from underneath my mom and my grandma's skirt, if you will, leave their protection and really get out into the real world. And, you know, I lived a different type of life there because I never had to worry about, you know, anything getting back to my parents. And, you know, even to this day.
you were like, what happens in Germany stays in
Yeah,
Germany.
yeah. And even to this day, people won't now subtract the mayor stuff, subtract all this, you know, just Ashley, you know, out in the world. People wouldn't call the police on me. People wouldn't try to harm me or anything like that because they knew the worst thing that they could do to me was go tell my mom something. And it was like, you know, like a situation I think a couple years ago, I'm not gonna go into details, but somebody was upset at me, and next thing I know, they knocking on my mom's door, like, and then I'm hearing about it, and it was just like, you know, I respect the respect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, you had a strong attachment.
Yes.
You have a strong attachment
Yes.
with them, and
Yes.
that creates this like I don't know, like I do so much psychology and counseling, but with kids, it's another one of those triangles where the base of attachment is all the good stuff, the love, the connection, the time spent together.
Yes.
And when you have that base, then you're able to kind of discipline in lower key ways because it's like just knowing your mom is disappointed would do something to your insides where you were like, oh shoot, I don't want to act that way.
And I've always been like confined by that. Always. You know, people.
And it is interesting because my parents, you know, as I go about my life, as I've faced difficult things, you feel the container they set for you.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, I had to go through a really difficult work thing where it was like 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
I figured out something was going wrong at work. And I called my dad and I said, I just realized this thing is going wrong.
Yeah.
And he said, you just let people know, be honest, the chips will fall where they may. And that creates this little thing inside of you. I mean, my dad every day was like, work hard, be honest, you know, as we were growing up. And it creates this container inside of you where even when you don't hear them, you know what they would say to you.
Yeah.
And you kind of like have to live that way or else your stomach hurts.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, you know, like I said, you know, people won't call the police on me. They're not gonna take me to court or go to the news on me. They're gonna go to my mom. That gets like instant results, like, you know, and you know, even if I'm in the right and they're in the wrong, you know, listen, okay, you win. Hey, listen, you went to mom's, and I used to you know, get mad at people for doing that. Like, man, I know you didn't go to my mom's, man. You know, but now, like I said, as I'm older, you know, I appreciate that. I appreciate that even other people recognize that the respect that I had for a certain type of authority.
Yeah.
You know, because if they would have felt, if they wouldn't have known the respect that I had, then they would have known that wouldn't have worked. And then they would have been, you know, mad at me in the streets. Hey, man, let's fight. Hey, I'm calling the police on you. Hey, whatever. But no, they know what works. And that's just them, like I said, you know, just.
But when you were in Germany, they weren't there. Nobody in Germany knew them. They couldn't call them. And so
I was a bad soldier. I was a bad soldier. And only because, like I said, you know, that was my first time like within the Army. Yes, it's structure, it's authority, but that took a back seat to not being under the authority of my parents.
Yeah.
That took a back seat. Like, man, I don't care what rules they got. Mom's is not here right now. Listen, let's have a good time.
You were
Yeah.
So you were in the Army for 4 years?
4 years, ma'am.
And then you came back? You can't call me ma'am.
Well, you know, muscle memory. I'm a military. You know, you triggered me. I got you, though.
Yeah. And then you came back. Did you go straight from Germany back to Rock Island?
Yep.
Did you live in any other cities in the United States?
Nope. I came from... I discharged out of the military honorably. I came back here in 02 or 03, somewhat around that time. And then a few months later, I had started working for Deere & Company.
Did you ever think about living anywhere else?
Never. And you know, that was surprising because I had a chance to see the world. You know, I had a chance to know what, you know, big cities are, and know what nice small towns are, and know what other cultures are. I loved it. You know, I was really, you know, turned on by that. But I'm coming back home, you know. Like I said, my whole set is here. You know, during that time, I had a child here. My grandparents were here. My aunts, my uncles were here. You know, my cousins. My whole set was here. Man, I ain't going nowhere.
Yeah. And family has a way of tying people to a place.
Yeah, shoot, I ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
I'm, you know, right here in Rock Island. And I want to bring up this point because a lot of people, a lot of people try to get away from Rock Island. They seek greener pastures. Like, oh man, there's nothing to do around here. I'm going to Chicago. I'm moving down to the A. I'm going to Memphis or wherever. But if you can't make it here, if you're not happy here, them other places are really going to tear you down and really going to expose you. Man, I'm like I'll visit them places, but even looking at it like financially, this is a decent place to live.
Yeah.
I remember at maybe 3 class reunions ago, a lot of us, we were at like a bar. We probably Icons.
Yeah.
We were at Icons.
Yeah.
Yes, right down the street at Icons. And somebody, I'm not saying it was me, but I don't know, somebody had bought a round for the whole table. And it came like 5 or 6 people. And it came out to like $22 or $25. And at the time, somebody was visiting in our class, but they had lived on the East Coast, and they were visiting back. They were like, man, I cannot believe it that if I would have bought a round for 6 people in the city on the East Coast, it would have been 100 something. It would have been like a big thing.
Yeah.
Like, hey, let me pull a freaking credit card. It would have been a big thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jim and I lived in Canada for 2 years.
Canada? I didn't know that.
Yeah, we lived in Vancouver, Canada.
That's cool.
It was super cool. But our little apartment, we only had, the only door in our whole apartment was to the bathroom. So it was like 400 square feet.
Yeah,
it was the 2 of us and our dog.
Yeah.
Like if we got in a fight and I wanted to storm off, I just had to go in the bathroom and shut the door because there was nowhere to go.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
But our little square, teeny tiny place in Vancouver is our monthly rent was more than our whole house payment for our mortgage now in Rock Island.
Now you understand.
Yeah.
So Rock Island is, even financially, emotionally, Rock Island is right where I want to be.
Yeah.
I don't, I've always been like simple. I never needed any additives in life to make me feel like I needed it, from speakers to going to concerts to being on social media just because, like back when like MySpace was jumping off, I don't think I ever had a MySpace account. I just completely missed that.
Well, you were probably busy. You were working and raising your kids.
No, because everybody that was working, raising their kids.
I had a MySpace.
I think I completely missed that whole boat.
Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah,
That's probably why you have good mental health, because you stayed off the social media as much as a person can.
Even today, people are telling me that, and that's why I need to get somebody kind of to manage it, because I don't have the energy for Facebook right now. I don't. It's so bad to me. It's so like draining, and even the positive is like negative.
Well, I think it's hard because it allows people to feel like they're involved. But if they don't take it anywhere beyond a Facebook post, it's really meaningless. It's like, unless you're going to get up in your community and do something with your hands, or with your, in a room with another body where you're like making change. But I think it can allow people, especially during the pandemic when you couldn't go, it can allow people to feel like I'm really doing something here.
Yeah.
But
and go ahead. I'm sorry.
Opinions don't build buildings. They don't put clothes on people's backs. I mean, it's hard. And I like totally got into the social media, mixing it up with people, and it didn't leave me a better person.
No, not at all. And what people don't realize is, no matter what you put on there, good or bad, no matter what you take from there, good or bad, just Facebook, period, is its own relationship with you. That is the relationship. So people would go on to Facebook to get relationship advice, You know, you'll have a post telling you to do this or think about this or you know, like I said, you know, good and bad. But Facebook is its own relationship. And a lot of times for me, that was, no matter if it was all good on Facebook, just a relationship with Facebook was a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
Just that. And I just never wanted to give myself anxiety, or I never wanted to feel as if, you know, that was going to dictate my day. Almost like weighing yourself, getting on a scale every day, depending on what the scale says, depending on if you're going to have a good day or bad day. I don't have things dictating me like that.
Yeah.
And I've always looked at Facebook like that. Like, I'm not. I don't have to do this. You know, and like I said, you know, even with, you know, like on the campaign trail, people were telling me, like, man, you have to get on Facebook. You have to do. Not necessarily. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I don't have to like open up the floodgates, or I don't have to like completely like sell out, or, you know, no, that's not genuine to me.
Yeah.
That's
not
me.
Who you are. You're more of an in-person, face-to-face.
Exactly. I wanted to get here being myself.
Yeah.
You know, if Ashley isn't good enough, then Ashley's not cut out for this.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't have served me anything to get here, but to get here like with hot air.
Yeah.
Or with all these extra additives that eventually would die off or die out. And then that's when people be like, you know what? You know, he's he's like all the rest. No, I'm here to be Ashley, and that doesn't cost me any energy.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, when you're being authentic and kind of don't have to put on a mask or.
So this job isn't tiring. You know, you asked me earlier,
I
hey,
know.
are you tired? No. I rest well. I take naps. I'm going to start eating better, you know, starting tomorrow.
Yeah,
you know?
well, we're getting older. You need to watch your cholesterol.
You know, starting tomorrow.
Yeah.
I've been saying that for like a month now, but, you know, I'm turning into something to where I always said I wasn't going to turn into, and that's a fat mayor. I'm not.
No,
listen. I'm not going to be a fat mayor, I tell you that. And right now, I am now, but hey, you know,
I don't think you are.
Listen, I'm a fat mayor, and you know,
you gotta love the body you're in. Body positivity.
I do love it. I do love it, and I, you know, I love it with honesty. You know, right now, Ashley, you're a fat mayor, and I'm gonna start doing my push-ups and sit-ups because, you know, it's gonna be a long, good summer. You know, we gonna be in some dunk tanks, and like I said, you know, we're still too young to not worry about, or to not, you know, present ourselves how we want to.
Yeah. Well, maybe you could start a workout with the mayor initiative where you get everybody to go for a walk every day and eat their fruits and vegetables. You know, the things we can do for free that help our entire healthcare system.
Sure, you're right. Sure,
taking care of ourselves.
I might as well, you know, turn this into good for everybody.
You'd have to have someone else manage the Facebook post that lets everybody know what you're doing.
And I'm not equipped for that. You know, if it was up to me, like right now, you know, I'm kind of like doing my own Facebook stuff. That's why it's like non-existent. And I really do want to address that, or have someone address it, because like in this day and age, you know, that is people's language. And a lot of people, they take it, you know, like etiquette, Facebook etiquette, that I don't understand. Like, hey, you know, somebody said, hey man, I sent you a friend request. I'm like, okay. I was like, all right, I'll get on, I'll check it, I'll accept it, you know, but I don't want to come off as disrespectful. Or
I also sent you a friend request.
Hey, listen, I've been saying that I'm going to get on Facebook.
I mean, I did send you a friend request. Yeah. You take your time getting back to me.
Hey, sorry about that. And it's like, you know, I don't mean any disrespect. I'm just never on.
Well, I actually got all the way off, like, and I had, you know, a 10-year history of pictures. So I deleted my account. It was totally gone. I was just like, I can't I can't with my
Yeah,
for my own mental health.
Yeah, yeah.
But then when I wanted to do this, I realized I'm going to have to get back on.
You understand?
Yeah.
You understand. So that's kind of how I felt. I was forced to feel like that. You like running for mayor. Like, hey man, you got to have social media presence. They need to see you. They need to, it's a criteria that you got to make a post every day or 3 or 4 a week. I'm like, man, that is so not Ashley.
Yeah.
And I didn't want anything, the process is already big and intimidating to a lot of people. It has, some running for office has some intimidating, scary components to it. But Facebook, I wasn't gonna deal with that.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna hey, I'm I don't have to do that.
Well, that's probably why that after high school, we didn't mix it up very much.
Yeah.
I didn't know what you were up to because you weren't on Facebook
been
telling
here.
everyone
I've
all
been
the
here
time.
living life, been here.
So what do you do at Deere? Has it changed over the years?
Yeah,
It's
changed. It's changed. I hired on as a machinist. I've always been a wage guy. I've always been like a shop worker, like a grunt, if you will. So I hired on as a machinist, but I was just, I first started just normal assembling, and then I went, then I was in a department to where I was hanging things like on a paint line. And then shortly thereafter, I had actually got into machining. Mm-hmm. I did that, for the lion's share of my career there, actually machining. And then, we had went through some reductions in certain departments, and I had picked, other jobs to do. I haven't done it all, but I have done, enough to, not get bored with anything.
Yeah.
And, right now, I have a, pretty chill job. I don't want to say that on camera. They might try to, well, hey, but no, I have a good position now.
Yeah.
Have a good position. And, fortunately, Moline Seating, we go through shutdown every year. Typically we would get 16 weeks off every summer. 4 months. That's a long paid.
Yeah.
That's like God sent. You know what I mean? And that allowed me a chance to even not get caught up in the hopeless, vicious cycle of a job. Like, man, we're working 10 hours every day. This is my life. It's gonna, I want to retire from here. This is what I'm doing for the next 30 years. Like, I'm not, formally educated. I don't have all these options. This is what it is for me. And getting those breaks off every summer, it allowed me mentally to break the year up into a season. Mm-hmm. Kind of like a professional sport. Your season is 8 months, and then, you come back the next season. And go ahead.
Humans need to rest.
Yes.
Humans need to rest. We aren't robots. We will be replaced by robots, but we're not robots.
So that gave me a chance to rest, to appreciate, to travel. There was one time to where, I considered myself a globetrotter. I was, every summer I was gone, I'm not here, for a month or two at a time. Mm-hmm. And I miss that type of freedom, but that is a good sacrifice, for the good that I would like to do within the community.
At what point in your career did you start to turn your attention toward kind of like community building and being engaged? And do you feel like you were always that way, or did that hit you 10 years ago, or what?
I always had the makeup for it. Mm-hmm. Always had the makeup, but it was never applied. Like even for this right here, this is something that I would say I wasn't raised for this. I wasn't raised to be a politician. A lot of times you see them, they've never been in any trouble. They don't have any ghost in the closet. They were raised for this. I wasn't raised for this. I was born for this. Mm-hmm. And that's just off of normal, no additives, just straight personality traits. And what the situation that caused me to even apply myself was the pandemic. During the pandemic, and this is the story on that. And you are involved in that story. I don't know if I've told you.
I don't think so.
Yeah, let me tell you.
Okay.
So the pandemic came about. I was going to the gym at work. Like every day. I mean,
we did briefly talk about this. Yes.
That was my thing, going to the gym at work. So when the pandemic came, they shut the work facility down. I'm like, well, I kind of still want to work out a little bit. So then I got a membership at the Rock Island Fitness Center, and then I had started going there. Same time every day, you get people on your same schedule, if you will. And then I ran into Coach, Rick Meyer.
Yeah.
Ran into him. And, we had been seeing each other every day for about a week or two. Then he was like, Ashley, he's always known me, He was like, Ashley, do you know what the CCC is? I was like, no. He was like, yeah, the Community Caring Conference. This is what we do, and I was gonna ask Annika, was she interested in something like this?
He never asked me, so you got to him. He got to you first.
Yes,
and then,
yes. I was the first. Like I said, the pandemic brought me here because he called you out by name that day. Mm-hmm. At the same time I was introduced to the CCC, he was like, hey, I wouldn't mind getting Annika for this. I wouldn't mind. And then he told me what it was. He was like, hey, we have a meeting once a month. This is where we're meeting at. Come on down. I said, okay, where you guys meeting at? They were meeting at the church on 12th Street, right? I'm like, 12th Street? I could walk there. That's like right down the street from the crib. So I get in there in the meeting, and then I see my aunt, right? I said, Aunt Maddie, what are you doing here? And she was like, oh, nephew. And I met everybody, maybe like the next month or short amount of time after that. They had voted me to be on the board. Right. So I'm like, this is great. It gave me a chance to like be a part of community building. I'm like, you know what? This is me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is me. Like, not just wasting my time, like volunteering and it's your job to, like I said, build community, strengthen relationships between police and community, which has always been an issue for a lot of people I know, that relationship. So I'm like, man, this is me.
It sounds like when a key goes into a lock
yeah,
and it just
yes.
turns and you're like, oh, this
yes.
is right. This is, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is me. So, maybe like 4 or 5 months, maybe it wasn't even a full 6 months. After that, the organizer, Miss Amitra, she wanted to retire, and the CCC, it's a board, and it's only one staff person, the community organizer. So Miss Amitra, she retired. She was like, hey, this is you right here. This is you. So I put my name in, I applied for the position. They interviewed me. I was on the board, but, they, interviewed me and gave me the position of being a community organizer. And after that, man, the rest is history.
Yeah.
The rest is history, and that just like, man, listen, this is what it is. And then that put in perspective, like as a normal, shout out to all my union guys, shout out to all my, factory workers out there. But even that isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
I just felt that was like a waste of not time, that people make their living doing that, but it was a waste of talent. It was a waste of Ashley's calling. And the pandemic led me to the CCC, which led me to community building, and ultimately, which led me to run for mayor. With me being an extreme empath, I always was disappointed, and it hurt my feelings out of all the people that were calling my phone as a community organizer. I could only help. There was like, 40, maybe 50% of the people who called me, I couldn't help them. And that, man, that upset me. That hurt me.
Yeah.
And then, I was like, man, I got the praying on it. I'm like, man, listen, I need to be put into something to where when people call Ashley, you don't have to call nobody else. I don't want to just, like, you call me and then I'm sending you to somewhere else and hoping they can help you and or hoping that they treat you right. No. When you call Ashley, hey, that's all you need to do. And that's something that, like I said, I actually, got on my knees and prayed for that to be.
Well, and you're inviting that type of responsibility
Yes.
and accountability,
Yes.
which is a burden.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like
I'm an empath. I'm not here for me. I'm not like enjoyment in life is not Ashley's life. Enjoyment in life to me is a better quality of life for everybody around me.
Yeah.
That's how I get paid.
I feel like this whole podcast, I'm just going to talk about my dad.
Yeah.
But as I think about how I think about things,
Yeah.
a lot of what shaped me is him. But there's also some saying, he never told me who said these things. He acted like he said them.
Yeah.
But he would say, like, if you look at your community, you can only judge it by how well you treat the least among you. So that empath spirit of, we can take a look at Rock Island, but the true measure of how well are we doing is how well are the people who have the least doing within a city, or he was talking about a society.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have that heart to kind of take everyone into consideration as you're serving and leading.
And that does not drain me. That like for instance, this is how I think. Back when we were younger, everybody wanted to be rich. Everybody, wanted to, get paid and everything. And I went through that phase as well. But this is like the weird part, and I really didn't understand it. The profession I wanted to get into was philanthropy. I've always wanted to give money away. That's like the biggest flex to me. So even when I started business for myself, even when what I would consider stacking chips up, even then I just wanted to be able to afford to give money away. That was my goal. I'm like, okay, I need to make this. I need to, structure this. I need to do this business. I need the paper chase.
Yeah.
I need to, but the motivation for that was to be able to become a philanthropist.
Yeah.
So I've always been in it for everything else.
Well, and I think what's interesting about our society in general is that people have more and more, like part of the population we all have more and more. Part of the population has like way more and way more. So income inequality has become greater. But as an American society, we're more lonely, we're more depressed, we're more anxious, we're more isolated.
Yeah.
We have horrible maternal health outcomes. We have we don't live as long as people in other developed nations. So to your point, like, what does the paper chase get you at the end of the race? You've got all the paper, and then people are feeling empty. And so I hear you called towards something. I mean, I feel that way too. It's like, I don't want to die with a bunch of money. I want to die feeling like I left wherever I was better than I found it.
Exactly.
And I think maybe that's part of what you can do in Rock Island. If you choose to live here and you have a little or you have a lot, you can make this a place where you don't just come to like hoard your money. You can be involved in a community and part of something bigger than yourself.
Yeah. I have not been on. Now I'm broke as a joke. Don't get me wrong.
I'm not. So
listen. I'm broke as a joke. Don't get me wrong.
I got a lot of privilege.
Right.
Here.
But I haven't mentally thought about money maybe in like 5 or 6 years. I haven't done anything extra to like accumulate or like I haven't thought about money, and I haven't been on the paper chase in, like I said, 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, even the position I'm in right now, like I said, I wasn't raised for this. I was born for this.
Yeah.
So when you get someone who wants to do for others more so than themselves, when you get someone who doesn't really care about money, not in an irresponsible way, but as far as my personal agenda or my personal gain, that serves me nothing. So ideally, that would make me a good politician.
Yeah.
I can't be, bought or sold. Money does not move me.
Yeah.
And that, like I said, maybe it's DNA, maybe it was just, contributed to how I was raised.
Well, what is that thing where people say like broke is a mindset?
Yeah.
You strike me as someone who's always had a lot of gratitude and appreciation for.
And right now, man, I feel rich. Man, I feel rich than a mug right now. I feel wealthy.
Yeah.
And I don't care or worry about money. And it's not like I have like a trust fund baby or like can do anything I want to do. No, I just don't. Money just doesn't move me.
Yeah.
If that makes sense to you.
I mean, if we live in a capitalist society where the message is you have to chase this, it's kind of on brand for you to structure your life differently and not to maybe be as concerned with what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
And I think even just, living in Rock Island, like, where you can afford to live and you can pursue passions and I said this in my last podcast too, but you don't have to like keep up with anybody.
No, never.
Yeah.
I've never had that like problem or mindset or anxiety.
Yeah.
I never.
So the CCC got you into this mode where you were starting to really identify as, with community service and this thing inside of you that was like, oh, I've been built for this for a long time.
Yeah.
I just haven't had the avenue to start to do what I've meant to do.
Yep.
What made you think, okay, I'm going to run for mayor?
Because it was a few things, but one thing was the percentage of people who called me that I couldn't help. It was, like I said, it was upsetting me. I'm an empath. That upsets me. If I can't help you, and part of my prayer was like, okay, I want to be put in better position. I want to be put in a position to where I can help more people, have more resources to help more people. I didn't know if I was going to get into the pulpit or like a deacon or something, or politicking. When I first said that prayer, when I first had my elders like pray over me, I didn't even know the direction, but I just doing my thing, and voila, here I am. And what gave me, I'm not going to say the confidence, because that's something that I've never lacked, but what gave me the nerve and the audacity and to really see myself with a chance of winning this thing, I contribute a lot of that to a couple things. My family, my upbringing, my family is, they get community respect, people who know my family that, hey, okay, yeah, they get more, they have more clout than what I do. I'm still the nephew. I'm still the grandson. Like, oh, that's Angelique's grandson. This ain't the mayor. That's Angelique's grandson. That's who I am. You understand what I'm saying? So that gave me nerve, audacity. Just being, from the area, already being involved with like community things, having the get back rapport that I could tap into, people that I grew up with. Like, hey man, I'm gonna need your support on this. Like, hey man, what do you think of, like, man, Ash, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican, but I know you though.
And our mayor is nonpartisan. So
Yes.
it's a beautiful thing that we have this nonpartisan.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And I never felt like I started from the ground level. I had been, community building. I had been volunteering. And it wasn't, and I never, when I was doing that, I never had like the next step in mind. Like, oh man, I'm gonna, use this or do this because I wanna. No. It was, situations that had to line up for even me to want to say, hey, I want to run for mayor.
Yeah.
First thing, like for instance, we both know Thurgood pretty well. That was the first person that even when this was like a thought, first person I ran it by, like, hey man, what you gonna do? Are you doing this again? Hey man, no, I'm oh, okay. If it would have been for that, I wouldn't have ran. Mm-hmm. If it would have been for this, that, or the other, I wouldn't have ran. I would have. I ain't. It's something else for me. But everything aligned, and everything aligned, and I felt that I had all the true qualifications. You don't have to be old, you don't have to be rich or well off, you don't have to be plugged or connected. No, you just have to be willing and have the want to serve the people.
Yeah.
Put the people in front of your own agenda or anything else. And I'm using that same offense, that same game plan, like right now. Like right now, I am doing this to the fullest, and tomorrow, like resume building for myself.
Yeah.
This is what I'm doing. The people are my resume. I've never been a resume builder.
Yeah.
I like, oh man, I went to this college. I have this degree. I sat on this board. I know these people. Man, listen, the people are my resume.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like when we ran into each other, we talked about the fact that sometimes the mayors, council members are people who can afford financially, time-wise, to commit that amount of time and effort. It's hard to do when if I actually cared about money, this wouldn't have been the thing for me. Yeah.
Because I'm in the middle of my working career here. A lot of people say, hey man, how do you have time to do it? You work a full-time job. You can't, hey, are you going to quit? Are you going to quit your job? Well, I would, but no.
You can't afford to.
No, you know what I mean? And this job, the pay on this job, on being a mayor, doesn't pay anything.
No.
Doesn't pay anything. I'm better off looking for money in between my couch cushions every month than, what this check is. It's just $15,000 a year, which is $1,200 a month. Mm-hmm. $1,200 a month, and that's not a lot. You can't live, you can't survive off that, especially having alone. You couldn't, let alone with, with children and grandchildren. You just couldn't afford to do it. But it's all about, what people talk about, like love languages. And if you've ever heard this, people make time for the things that they really want to do. People make time for the things that they really want. And this is something that I will make time for.
Yeah.
And luckily for me, I've never cared about money. Mm-hmm. If I cared about money, I wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's time consuming. It's a lot of work. But I think I put out a little article this week about, how is the city of Rock Island structured? So I think we have like a mayor-manager system or a council.
A manager-council system.
Manager-council system.
We're in a weak mayor format. Yeah.
Which I guess is a benefit to, it's not like you have to every day be following up with the Parks Department to make sure that they got their deliverables, or, the city manager does a bulk of that. And then you're kind of setting the policy, you're deciding what to focus on and highlight. Do you get a vote during city council?
No, not typically, only if there is a tie vote.
Okay.
But the situation, with us having an odd number of council members, that's rarely.
Only if someone has to like what's that word? Recuse themselves.
And even still, it would have to be split, 3-3. And that's rare. That's rare.
Yeah.
That's rare.
Yeah. And so, I mean, what is the job of a mayor? I mean, if you think about what are your main duties, or how does a mayor lead? What do you think?
On a superficial level, and I take pride and honor in this as well, being the face of Rock Island. When you think, when you actually Google Rock Island, my face pops up.
And you have a good smile.
Oh yeah. Whatever. But I take honor in that to represent Rock Island in its official capacity. Man, that is one of the biggest honors. I'm from here. You know what I mean? We always, back in our younger days, we always used to talk stuff like, yeah, man, I'm a boss. I run the town. I'm like, man, I am Rock Island. Well, I am Rock Island.
Well, I wanted to make t-shirts, and I was telling my sister, what if I made one that's like Rock Island, bout it.
Yeah.
Master P style. But she's like, I don't think you could do that because not everyone will get that reference of Master P.
Well, a lot of people didn't get when we were talking about what was the Compton like I'm from
straight out of 99.
Okay, yes. Yeah. Straight out of 99 or straight out of Rock Island. People still don't know where that originated from.
Yeah. So we're really dating ourselves in this.
Yeah. So when
But if you saw a t-shirt that said Rock Island bout it, would you get it?
I would rock it. Okay. I'm about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I would rock it. Yeah. And like when people say, "Hey, this house rocks," and you know what I mean? Though people wouldn't know where it originally came from. They'd be like, "Oh, it sounds good." But back to the roles of a mayor. The people put me here, and I am the people's representation here. I am their opportunity for checks and balances. It's a lot of people who have issues or problems. They'll come down here, hey man, my water bill isn't right, or hey man, whatever an issue may be. And a lot of times, people, their relationship, their trust level with government is negative. It's like, man, they're not going to do nothing for us. It's like an us versus them. Well, the mayor is your representation, your representative, even down here at City Hall.
Yeah.
I am the people, and the people are in charge here. The people are in charge here, and I am. I set out to be symbolic of that, so when people come down here with issues, when we go out and, talk to the community and they have issues, I am here to address that. I am your attorney. I am your guardian. I am here to work for you. And luckily, I bring the authority and the resources and the recognition, the platform of a mayor. But like it should be like that because you are the most powerful source and I am a representative of you. Yeah. So that is the job of a mayor, to represent the people. And not just, like I said, not just superficially like with a face. No, with actions and wants. It's like it's like we could sit up here and think about it like, man, if it was up to me, this law would be like this. Or if it was up to me, this law would be like that. Or, man, they are wrong for how they're treating the people.
Look, my thing is off again. It was on.
Okay. What does a mayor do?
Yeah.
And I was saying that we are the representative of the people. It is my job to to work for you, to defend you, to take your concerns and really try to do something about them. Because as far as how people look at government as being untrustworthy, a mayor is your representative for checks and balances. You know, a lot of people feel hopeless when it comes to government.
Yeah.
And a mayor is who you put there to think about you, to fight for you, to advocate for you, and to really, you know, be on your side. And that's kind of, you know, I ran my campaign, you know, on that, you know, letting people know, because, you know, people will come to city hall meetings and, you know, you could come in and you could feel like the tension in the room, like the pressure, almost like you're in a courtroom. You know, you could cut it with a knife. And people would come, they would, you know, be scared and nervous and, you know, just feel like they're up against the system. And I always wanted to let people know that with me, you, the people, have the house advantage. You know, it's up to, you know, if anybody's going to win, it's going to be you.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, that is what you put me here for, to think and to act like that. And I really think, like I said, I really think that I was born for this, because I'm not out for myself, or I'm not here to resume build or to be on my own agenda. I'm not even here to get rich or to get paid, you know? So the ways that I've conducted my life throughout my life, you know, makes me a good person for the job. And that doesn't, like I said, that doesn't cost me any energy. You know, I'm just being Ashley. Nothing has been overwhelming or surprising, because I'm not here to live a role.
Yeah.
You know, like funny, a guy, you know, that works here in the administration, he came in last week. We were just, you know, chopping up in the office a little bit. And he was like, you know what, man, it's a big difference. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, man, you know, the past mayor, he was well off. You know, he had some pretty nice rides. You know, he'll pull up in a big boy truck, and or you know, when he feeling froggy, he may pull up in a Sportster or whatever, something. And you know, right now I'm in an old Ford. I'm in my grandma's old Ford right now.
Yeah.
And I've been pushing that really long. I need to return her car. That I'm gonna do it next week. You know, my car, I just have a flat tire. You know, but the reason I've been in my mom's truck is because that was more suitable for work on my campaign. You know, I had my yard signs. You know, I didn't want to have to go to another location or go somewhere else to pick up some yard signs. No, if you call me, I'm delivering them. I need them right here with me.
Yeah.
And even after the campaign, picking up some yard signs.
Yeah.
So you know, my mom's truck, and I have a car. So my mom's truck, or my grandma's truck, is, you know, ideal. So I've been in that, like I said, I've been in that for like months now. And next week I'm gonna, you know, clean up her truck and return it back to her.
Yeah.
And then I'll be in my normal Ford. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I'm not here to clout chase. You know, I'm here to be myself.
Yeah.
You know, people were asking me like, man, you know, you don't want this thing, man. You're going to have to upgrade the whip. You're going to have to upgrade the car. For what?
Yeah. Yeah.
For what?
Yeah, and to spend more time and energy focused on your image than doing the work of the people.
Listen.
I'm sure what we're doing right now actually is not that normal. You know, I bet to let someone come into your office and to talk openly and to not be guarded about yourself, your history, you know.
Because like I said, I'm not scared of anything. I'm not ashamed of anything, and I'm fully confident that I have what it takes.
Yeah. Yeah, and a little bit of it is just going to be you have to do the job for a while and let people see.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Put some real work in.
Yeah.
You know, we're myself included. We're not satisfied that we're just here.
Yeah.
We haven't made it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not happy just because I won the election. You know, I'll be happy, like I said, after we get some tangible change in Rock Island.
What do you, as you were out on the campaign trail talking to people, hearing from folks,
Yeah.
you know, what are a couple issues that came up over and over again?
Well, you know, are the conditions of our roads. That is, you know, that's a heavy hitter. The lack of services in the area, you know, because like I said, you know, a lot of our residences, they've been to other cities. You know, they've you know, they're not born and raised in Rock Island. They've been to Atlanta and St. Louis, and you know, they lived in Canada, you know, for a couple years, you know, so they know what a city could be.
Well, we also lived downtown St. Louis.
That is my favorite city.
But we lived there in 2000.
Rock Island is my favorite city, but I like St. Louis.
So we lived there in 2004, 2005, and we lived in mixed income housing because, you know, we were broke back then.
Yeah.
And so we applied to live as like, you know, in low income housing or mixed income housing. So it was somebody had redone an old abandoned building and you had to like fit into certain income brackets to live. And you could see tumbleweed blow through St. Louis. That downtown was so dead. There was nobody there. You know, there weren't a lot of people around. There were empty storefronts there. And we were back there last year and it was booming, at least the part that we were in.
Booming.
And so cities can change.
They will.
Yeah.
They will. You know, and it just takes the want and the will, the support from the people. That's been here since the beginning of Rock Island time. You know, it's just going to take some elbow grease. It's going to take some determination, and other than the people, it's going to take the support of the city to want the city to thrive and grow. You know, economic development is the number one thing that will solve all of our pressing issues, from our tax rate to our population decline to even our infrastructure of our roads, to employment opportunity and you know, a place for, you know, our young adults or any residents to live out their glory days here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No one, I don't know if we talked about this before, but no one in Rock Island is living out their glory days. I have a problem with that. I got a problem with that. That's why, you know, our young people, they go get a taste of, you know, a real nightlife or a real like city, and they don't want to come back. The only thing that brings them back is them making a sacrifice of, man, I need to go back and look for your elderly parents or your grandparents. It's just the only thing that brings people back to the Quad Cities. I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, economic development is, you know, that will allow us to not only increase our population, but to stop the hemorrhage of the people that's leaving.
Yeah. There have to be enough core jobs in the city of Rock Island for people to have work, to have meaningful work and make a decent wage. And
social infrastructure. You know?
When I was talking to Don Wooten last week, he's 96, so he's lived in Rock Island since he was 17.
Yeah,
and
he's a legend.
He's a legend.
Yeah.
But he said that in the heyday of Rock Island, like when we were in high school, and it was you making my weekend.
Yes.
You know, all that stuff.
Yes.
He said the city also ran super efficiently. So he said, you know, we don't have as many businesses as some of the other areas. we're also landlocked, so we can't really like expand outward. We can't. But he said we ran so efficiently that we did a lot with what we had. And, you know, so I feel like that has to be a part of the piece of the puzzle too, is just to
no doubt
make stuff last. You know, whatever we get back in tax revenue to stretch our dollar.
Yeah. And to make the proper decision, you know, and I'm not going to get, you know, controversial with anything, but I will bring this up. When we look at the old Walmart area, you know, us getting into, you know, that deal. When we look at the Mylan Bottoms situation, you know, a lot of people that are against the development, they say, hey, you know, the Turtles, the Eagles, hey, you know, we need to respect this. We need to keep this like this. But the people that are against, or the people that are for the development, they say the number one thing they say is, hey, we need the money. We need the tax revenues.
Yeah.
True.
We're kind of still carrying I don't know the whole situation, but whatever happened on 11th Street, we're kind of carrying a huge debt burden from that.
Huge debt.
That limits what we can do with our tax dollars.
Exactly. And that is why our infrastructure is so poor right now. And the right proportion of our proceeds isn't being reinvested back into our infrastructure because we're paying debts elsewhere, you know?
Yeah.
So when you look at it on those terms, we want to get to the point of being off of desperation. You know, when people want a development strictly because, hey, we need the money. We're desperate here, folks.
Yeah.
You know, we're not even weighing out any real options here. We just know we need the money. So going through a desert, let's say, we're thirsty. You know, we need some water. Well, realistically, as desperate as we are, we'll take any liquid, whether it's water or not.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And as a city, we want to get to where we're not so desperate because, you know, this is a big, cruel world. You know, we won't only, if we continue the way we have been, we won't be attracting developers. We will be attracting opportunists.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying? So that is why economic development is so important to get us in a respectable position as a city to where we can afford to make the decision we want to make, other than we need the money, or other than, whether you're for or against it. I just don't like the situation to where we have to go here or have to go there. That's my job into repositioning ourselves to where we don't, we can wait out for some water if we want to.
Yeah.
Like, hey, man, And
I think that's something everybody can relate to. You sit around your own table, you make decisions about either we got to make more money or we have to cut our expenses or we've got to do both. And
at that kitchen table, you wouldn't want to be in a position to where you have to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Like, hey, man, listen, Junior and little Annika, they're just not going to play soccer this year. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And you'll be like, dang, hey, we have to because we need the money. No, we need to do better to where if little Annika doesn't play soccer, it's because she doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Not because we're doing what we have to do.
And I think what's interesting to me, or what I'm thinking about, is you talked about attachment with your family. Mm-hmm. And obviously, like, our parents have shaped us, and how almost like the city is kind of an attachment figure.
Yeah.
Mayor is a communicator. Not that your mayor is like your parent or anything, but in a society, in a city, someone that you look to help take care of you.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and our cities are limited in what they can do, just
Yes.
as a parent might be limited in what they can do for their child.
Yeah.
But when there's a strong attachment, when
Yeah.
there's an attachment built on trust,
Yeah.
transparency,
Yes.
openness,
Yes.
dialogue.
You're talking my language now.
Yeah.
That's my love language now. Yeah.
Yeah.
For the city. Yeah.
Yeah, that you can even tell someone, you can't play soccer this year, and it devastates me. And here's why.
Yeah.
And here's the plan.
Yeah.
So that, you know,
Yeah.
the next generation of our kids, everybody's playing soccer.
Everybody.
Because we're kind of in a build back period.
We are. And not even a build back period. We are looking to get to a build back period.
Yeah.
You know, somebody let me say this, and this may blow your mind, that the village of Milan, when we think of the village of Milan, we think of that one little area to where they got Hy-Vee and KFC and
Happy Joe's. Now it's called Joe's Place, which I'm like, what is that?
Yeah,
what is
yeah,
Joe's Place?
okay, Joe's Place, and you know the old skate ranch. Anyway, you know the area that I'm talking about. That's what we think of when we think of Milan. The village of Milan, they generate more sales tax revenue than the city of Rock Island. I have a problem with that.
Really?
Really. I have a problem with that.
How?
How?
Because what is there? There are shops and stores and
but
the whole city of Rock Island.
Yes. Yeah.
More sales tax.
The more sales tax revenue is generated from the village of Milan than the whole city of Rock Island. That pisses me off.
Yeah. Or my daughter would say PMO.
Oh, okay. PMO.
I don't know if your daughter from Rocky says that, but PMO is
PMO. Okay. PMO. PMO.
Wow, that's really interesting.
It's really disturbing. It's really disturbing. So economic development, like I said, it's going to allow us to increase our population, and that'll also help with our tax base. You know, with the portion of taxes you pay. You know, Rock Island, our tax base is set off of a population of 51,000 people. Right.
And we only have 38?
No, 36.
36.
So we're down roughly 15,000 people that were helping out with that bill.
Yeah.
So we don't want to get into a situation to where the city continues to collapse on its residences.
Yeah.
Like, hey man, we're not doing no work. We just got to get extra from you. No,
right.
We need to start doing work here.
Right.
Economic development.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So this is, like I said, you know, that's one area that's been identified as the common denominator for all of our pressing issues, from the lack of money for our roads, like I said, to our population, to the lack of services, the lack of opportunity here, you name it. Mm-hmm. You name it. It all boils down to economic development here.
Yeah.
You know, our main corridor, our busiest street in Rock Island, Black Hawk Road. You know,
that's our busiest street.
That's our busiest street, Black Hawk Road.
Okay.
Black Hawk Road. And on our busiest street, we have the most potential for economic development.
Yeah.
You know, when you and see, this is another thing. People need to start looking at Rock Island right side up. Mm-hmm. We look at the town upside down. You know, we call this downtown. Mm-hmm. Literally, it's uptown. Mm-hmm. It's north.
In terms of north,
yes,
south. Yeah.
This is uptown.
Yeah.
You know, but now if we want a real downtown, we have the opportunity to have one.
Yeah.
If we want a real city center, if you will, we have the opportunity to have that.
You know what's so interesting about that stretch of Black Hawk Road? Mm-hmm. And so once I get my space, and I signed my lease today at 3.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, Jim's going to pick up the keys.
Okay.
But I want to have on a wall like ideas, you know, just people throwing stuff at the wall.
Yeah.
But I always think like right behind that shopping center and those houses and is the river.
Is the river.
And it's so beautiful.
It's beautiful.
But we don't have any access to it. And, you know, to be able to do shopping and go to your accountant and that whole business corridor is kind of, it's less than appealing.
A lot of room for opportunity.
Yeah.
A lot of room for improvement.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just coming down to really recognizing our potential and our strengths and really doing something about it, man.
Well, and we need like another pediatrician in town.
We listen.
There's rumors going around that the OBs in Moline are moving to Silvis, and so there will not be a baby doctor in Rock Island or Moline. And I don't know if that's true.
Well,
I heard it. I heard it on Facebook.
I would hope not, because when we look, that'll just further our mission to increase our civilization here.
Yeah.
And I know the word civilization is scary, but that's really what, we need to do here is better build our civilization. I brought this analogy up a few times, that Rock Island is our own planet. Rock Island is our very own world. And with Rock Island being our planet, the things that we have to go to the moon for, Moline and Davenport, things we have to leave our planet to go get.
Yeah. Let's
keep it simple. A pair of shoes, a piece of lumber, a dry cleaner, to have a baby. These are things that I have a problem with.
Yeah.
We can't, we have Rock Island pride, but you would have to be, it was a small block of time, let's say from 45 to 50, and then another block of time you have to be over 80 years old for Rock Island to be on your birth certificate.
Yeah.
So how can we build a city, a proud city, to where all you can do is die here?
Yeah.
We can't reproduce here.
Yeah.
No one from Rock Island has Rock Island on their birth certificate.
Yeah.
I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I'm a prideful son.
I was also for one of my t-shirt ideas, because I'm thinking about all these t-shirt ideas, but I can't say born and raised in Rock Island. I can only say raised.
Exactly.
And so
we like I said,
it's like you need an asterisk after the born.
I bleed Rock Island, but I was born in Moline.
Yeah. Me too.
We all were. So like I said, the things that you have to leave the planet for. If we wouldn't want to go to the moon to have a baby.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want to go to the moon to buy some shoes. Those are things that we want right here on our planet. So that's what I'm saying. We need to think about it like that when we're building our civilization.
And do you think Rock Islanders could become so unified that we could be like, what service do we need here?
Yes.
I mean, we should have a little bowling alley. We should have,
and that.
But then you'd need everyone in Rock Island to agree. Like, I promise that, because when I was growing up, we never went to Davenport.
Never.
We did everything on the Illinois side.
Never.
And so I think people go outside of Rock Island to consume.
Yeah.
And how do we keep, I mean, we sound like Rock Island first, or kind of like, but how do you get a city to love itself so much that it figures out what it needs and kind of grows that here? And and I love watching all the kids come out of Rocky, but I'm just like, we need more builders, like people who know how to build a house, and we need more kids learning how to preserve old homes and help old people with their lawns, and also like starting little restaurants, or we don't need big box stuff. Small business can. But we also need people with money to spend at the restaurants and to spend on their homes, because
we need to bring employers.
We need it all.
We need it all. And that is, like I said, that is getting back to one of the roles and the functions of a mayor, somebody to look at things even off paper, even on paper, even biblically, if you will, big picture, if you will. Just look at things in a lot of different ways and work towards that. Work towards building a civilization. We're not here just to survive. We're not here just to increase taxes or to have it be us, them. We're not here for that. We're here, like I said, to get better.
I feel like they need a class at Rocky. Maybe it would be an elective, but where you're like having kids, because this is what really wealthy kids get to do in private schools across the country. They just get to come together and like talk and come up with ideas, and everybody gets an A in the fanciest schools. You know, they need a class at Rocky that's just like, look at Rock Island. How do we make it better? And then they let those kids do that project and get credit for it, and, you know, become the leaders of the civilizations of tomorrow, which in this country are going to be people speaking all sorts of different languages, people having all sorts of different
Annika.
resources. I mean, we're the world. I love Rock Island. That's why we live here. That's why we didn't move to a different city, because I want my kids to know, like, if you want to be in this world, you got to be in this world. And you need to figure out how to be in this world.
No doubt.
And so I feel like Rocky needs like a class that's like, okay, kids.
And
what do we do? Because they're smart. They know how to use technology.
They're very innovative.
They're innovative, but we have
smart.
them we're not caught up. Like, we just have them learning how to do the things of yesterday and sit still and punch a clock and take a test. And so I feel like they just need like a couple creative classes. Let's go approach the superintendent and the new principal and talk to them about it.
Really.
Like, some of their classwork should be around city leadership. How do you lead your city? How do you make things better in your community?
How do you apply yourself to your community if you really want to?
Because I feel like in some ways too, with the debt at the national level and the way things are going, like, no one's coming to save us.
No.
There's not some big influx of federal dollars or COVID money might have been the end of that.
And I am fully aware of that. I'm not here. I'm not here looking for a savior. You know, and knowing I'm not a savior. Knowing, like I said, it's going to take all of us to move forward. And we don't even have to be together, but it's going to take all of us to move forward.
100%.
100%. 100%. And like I said, you know, that is the job of a mayor, to represent the people, to have the people's best interests at heart.
To inspire.
To
organize. To connect. I think part of it is pulling in people who haven't maybe always been involved or felt like they could be involved. You know, like, just to sit in this office, people are telling you, like, well, you got to get a different car.
Like, man, I know you're going to upgrade. I know you're going to upgrade.
No, you're good enough just as you are right now to be involved in your city.
Man, I'm the same OG, man. You know, you know what I mean. So and like I said, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. You know, even my schedule. You know, if one is not careful, my schedule will turn me into a politician. You know, you met Colleen. You know, there's a couple people in the administration where they can add things onto my calendar. And then I told them, I'm like, hey, you know, all this stuff, you know, it's fine, but, you know, I'm not going to do all this dog and pony show stuff. You know, doing this, it will easily turn me into a politician, take me away from the people. Like, man, we haven't seen Ashley in months. Ashley's been politicking and dog and ponying and trying to live a life that's not me. I'm not here for that. Just like I told them, my schedule still needs to reflect what got me here. That's the people. That's community building. That's staying in touch and engaging. That's what I'm here for. I'm not here for none of this stuff you see. I just sit here because this is where they want me to sit. But I work out there, I think out there, my heart is out there. I'm taking a month or two to learn this, learn myself around this world so I can know how to best help you in our world.
Well, and back to that attachment figure thing. I mean, as you're going out there and you're, you know, like sometimes you have to make a hard decision. You're going to upset people. I mean, I was at the alderperson thing with you the other night when the tornado came through and we had to go down into the basement. But, you know, people were upset about a dog park. And it's important. And people love their animals and other people have, and there's like conflict and people are fighting. And I mean, how is that for you? Because I often look at the council members and mayors and I think, God, that would suck.
No,
just to have people kind of upset with you about something all the time. It
only sucks when people are scared of other people, when people are scared of the truth, when people are scared to tell people the truth, when people are scared to be transparent. That's the only time you see friction like that. But if you had a legitimate gripe, like, hey, man, the dog park this, the dog park that. And I tell you, I understand that. But the position we are in right now, we have to go this route because it's more economical friendly. It's more in line with us attracting more people to the district. It would be a field of this as opposed to a dog park because our ultimate goal here is to bring people down to the district. You know, people aren't going to come to the district because we have the best dog park in the Quad Cities.
Well, and if it's a family-friendly place, people might be afraid of dogs, or they might,
everything.
You know, who knows? I don't know.
So like I said,
and it's not like the most important example, but it's just something that now you're in this position where you want to help people, you want their voices to be represented, and you have to like upset people. And it will upset them on the surface level because, you know, we are a spoiled people. We're a spoiled people. You know, we live here, you know, in America. We like it's a thing to where we have to be fair and, you know, we're spoiled, you know. So on the surface level, anything going against your opinion or your original want, hey. But when you know the reason why someone said something, and you can understand it, that fear, or fear is the wrong word, that dislike for the other opinion or the other decision, it won't run as deep. Yeah.
It only runs deep when people, like I said, they feel like they're being lied to.
Or not heard.
Exactly.
Even if you're going to disagree.
That's the issue here.
Yeah.
So my approach is I'm going to be transparent and I'm going to be upfront with you. And I'm going to articulate my opinion. You're going to understand.
I'm such a therapist at heart, but I feel like sometimes the way we interact with our city can reflect our own stuff we felt in our families or with the people who were authority figures in our lives. Like I had this client once, and I'll make up something about her story, but basically she wanted a certain type of shampoo.
Okay.
And her parents, were like, you can't have that shampoo. But she saw her brother getting other stuff or something. And her parents were just very much like, no. Yeah. There was no conversation. There was no hearing out, and I'm making this up because I don't want to let anyone know who this would be. But then she remembers going to her friend's house, and her friend wanted shampoo. And she watched the parents say, baby, I know you want this shampoo and why this is important to you. Yes. But here's the reality of our situation. Yes. And so at this time, either you can't have the shampoo or you could help contribute to how we get the shampoo. Exactly. Or, and she was like, wow, that girl didn't get the shampoo either. Yeah. She actually didn't also get what she wanted. Exactly. But I watched her feel engaged, cared for, part of, and it changed the dynamic.
Exactly. Yeah. So when it comes to town halls, when it comes to public comments, that is what it is with me. I'm not scared of what you're gonna say or what you're gonna ask, or I'm not scared of people. I don't run from people. And a lot of politicians do, and people smell fear. That's so that's so fake and phony. I'm here to listen to you. I'm here for you to beat me up sometimes, but you are going to understand the exact situation of the matter at hand here.
Yeah, and that there's nothing. I mean, I think people can also feel like, is there stuff, I think when you're so disconnected from your city or from your government, you know, you can just feel like, is there stuff going on that I don't know about? Is there stuff going on that's not fair? And that could be totally untrue. Everything could be going swimmingly and wonderful.
We're telling we're telling the story here. We're telling the story here. And you'll know exactly why. You'll never hear no response or just because or that's just the way it is. Yeah, ma'am. You know, I understand that, you know, you want your dog park. Yeah, I understand that. But now, right now where we are, our next move needs to be our best move. And our best move is not this dog park right now. It's this right now, because ultimately, this is why we want more people down here. Ultimately, this is why we want the district to thrive, because, and then it'll be explained to them how that will be beneficial to them too.
Yeah.
Because it would serve someone no purpose to, you know, I'm just bringing up the dog park thing because we're talking about it. It would be no purpose for someone to ask for a dog park and then the next thing they say, they're complaining that we don't have money for the roads here. Like, okay, well, hey, well, we're not doing this, so we can do this to really get to your issue here.
Yeah, and it's such a big budget, and there's so many moving parts. It's hard to give people information too, which is part of, in my little website, trying to put together little facts or little snippets, because it can be kind of unruly, like all the money and all the projects and all the things that move around and how much do we put here and there. I mean, it's confusing for residents. It's hard to understand.
And we're just, like I said, we're just gonna stick to the principles, and we're gonna keep it real simple, stupid.
Yeah.
We're going to keep it real, simple, stupid.
Yeah.
You know, conduct complex business, but put it in a way to where the public understands exactly where we are and what's going on.
Yeah.
That's the job of a mayor.
Yeah. Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Because I feel that we're better positioned for the actual change that we deserve.
Yeah.
You know, that we're better positioned for, you know, I'll say it again, for things that we deserve. You know, Rock Island has been waiting a long time. You said we're in the bounce back stage. That's we would hope to be in the bounce back stage, you know, because Rock Island went through a depression, you know, when we, like in 85, you know, mid 80s, where we lost a lot of our manufacturing jobs. You know, that hurt Rock Island, that hurt the whole area, and it caused us to go into a depression.
Yeah.
Right. And typically, you know, when you're in a valley, you know, there's no place to go but up. But Rock Island never did get out of that valley. We went through the other side of it.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? We like a depression, you go down depressed, then eventually you work your way back up. No, Rock Island went down depression, and then we went through it on the other side of it.
We're just riding it out down there.
Yeah. So for us to be on the get back,
yeah,
I'm fortunate to say we're going to be on the get back. Headed in the right direction.
I mean, I kind of have a vision of Rock Island that I would be like, okay, by the time, you know, my grandkids, let's say they wanted to come back here, what I would like the city to look like, or different things that I'm like, oh, this is Rock Island's identity, or do you have that? Like, do you think about how you, do you see your role more as visioning it and seeing it, or do you see your role as hearing the vision from the community and shaping it to their likes and dislikes, or do you kind of feel it in yourself of like, this is what I would like this town to be?
A little bit of both. I envision Rock Island. I envision our population being over 50,000, right? And just the want to increase our population. If that was our only goal, to increase our population, then that puts us on the mission for a lot of other different things. Social infrastructure. Hey, we want a strong school system here. Hey, we want a good hospital. Hey, we want safe neighborhoods here. Hey, we want job opportunity here. You know, when we just focus on the one thing, it's a lot of things that we would have to do to achieve that.
Yeah.
So when we are talking about bringing employers here, you know, maybe we've talked about this before, but you know, a lot of people in Rock Island, they say they have a good job. But, you know, 9 times out of 10, if you have a good job, you don't work in Rock Island. You understand what I'm saying? So when we can give our citizens here employment opportunity, it's like this. If the average person I knew got paid every Friday, I'm not even talking about a high paying job. I'm talking about like $300, $400, $500 a week. If the average person that we knew got a paycheck, that is the beginning of our economic development.
Yeah.
It's gonna be them people, them young adults. Hey man, let's put our money together. Let's get this tattoo shop over here.
Yeah.
Or man, let's open up this barber shop or this studio. Like man, that is economic development. And that is exactly in line with what you said. It's going to be the mom and pops. We don't have to be big box. We just have to create the opportunity for our residences to be the economic development.
Yeah.
I don't have to try to save the world. You know, I just need to give you the opportunity to save the world.
Yeah, and if Amazon builds their big data center in
Yeah.
Davenport,
Yeah.
you know, maybe folks decide to come back and live in Rock Island and bring their paychecks back to Rock Island because we have good amenities, or we're a place that's affordable.
Now you understand. Now you understand.
Yeah.
And to create career opportunity for our young people, so we won't go through any brain drain.
Yeah.
Or any hemorrhage for that matter.
Yeah.
You know, to where people, like I said, can even live out their glory days. When I see Augustana kids hopping on a party bus, driving through the district of Rock Island, going to Davenport, I have a problem with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That POM me.
Yeah. PMO.
PMO me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That PMOs me. I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
So you know, it's a lot of things that you know, some frustrating things, you know, brought me here, but frustration didn't bring me here. Anger didn't bring me here. You know, I don't have like, you know, like a negative like to-do list. You know, I'm not, you know, out to get anybody. You know, I'm here to prove myself that I'm going to be authentic Ashley. I'm not here to clout chase. I'm not here to think I made it. I'm not here for none of that. I'm here to fulfill the promises that I made on that campaign trail. I'm here to fulfill the promises I've made when people come into this office. When I look in people's eyes and people talk to me with concern and look up to me for answers, I'm that listen, I don't mess around with that. We got you know, like when you run a campaign, you know, you put pride on the line. You know what I mean? You put your record on the line. You know what I mean? You may not be undefeated anymore. You know, like we have kids in the school system. You know, we have to think about them too. Hey, your dad lost, or your dad. We put it all on the line. It's not just me with this thing. We put it all on the line. So when you put everything on the line, that is serious business.
Yeah.
We're not here to play.
Yeah.
We're not here to just, like I said, just like, yeah, man, we won, I won. You know, we good now. We made history. Are you kidding me? I would hope you wouldn't think I'm that shallow.
You're here to dream, but dream with some
Yes.
momentum, some action,
Yes.
some
Yes.
outcomes.
So what makes me happy is really achieving our possibilities. Really doing, like I said, change that I don't have to tell you about. Change you telling me about. If I got to tell you some stuff that you don't know, like, oh yeah, man, these are all the improvements that we've done, you know, in my first couple years. This is, if I have to tell you and you don't know, man, what am I doing here?
Yeah. If you don't notice it,
You're
and
supposed
feel
to,
it.
you're gonna feel this.
Yeah.
You should be telling me stuff I done forgot.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, man, you know, I seen that you guys, you know, got the dog park in there. Oh man, I forgot about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
That is the mission here.
Yeah.
You know, I want you to brief me. I don't want to brief you on nothing. You tell me how it is out there.
Yeah.
You tell me the change. And that, like I said, I'm here for real work, Annika.
You want people's lives to be better.
Yes.
And you want them to be able to like tangibly feel
Yes.
it and report back to you that I feel better about the place that I live
Yes.
in. Yeah.
This is the change that I feel, I notice. Man, Rock Island is on the map now. Man, I'm telling people, hey, y'all need to move up here to Rock Island. Like, man, I've been down there to Atlanta. It's cool, but man, listen, I'm coming back to Rock Island.
Yeah.
It's decent up there, man. They got opportunity up there. They're shaking and moving up there.
Yeah.
And that will be a complete different story. That'll be a story that we've never heard speaking on Rock Island.
Well, and we have all these other places that do have factories and jobs. And we can, when you talk about economic development, we can do some of that. You can work your tail off to try to get a company here and but
we can do a lot of that.
Even if a company didn't come here, we can make Rock Island such a special place to live that someone who has a job in a different city could come here. And I just think, like, when I think about Rock Island's identity, the nature, being surrounded by water, the opportunities at like Sunset Marina, the downtown situation.
Yes.
But we need like a really cool comedy club, or, you know, I don't know, just something that around the arts or culture that is just very unique to us, that we take advantage of our identity that's different than the other cities, where you can be maybe a little more gritty or crunchy or green or artsy, where you can
to be a hub for something. To develop an identity. And we're in the stages of doing that. We're in the stages of being on the comeback. And we're in the stages of developing identity. But nothing, you know, however, you know, first thing being first, the citizens need to know that they have an administration that's working for them now, not against them. We've changed our pronouns, you know, we're no longer them and they. Now we're we and us. That's Rock Island's pronouns now. And that's been a big change from administrations in the past, leaders in the past, to right now. It's we and us now.
An investment in what's already here. You know, that we have so much talent and potential and opportunity. How and that is a challenge of a lot of little cities across this country, is how do you, like, kind of like magic, like make something from nothing. You know, when you don't have the dollars coming in, when you don't have the factories, how do you make something from, it's not nothing, but it's like with less capitalism sticks to rub together. Getting people to remember the last town hall meeting we were at, and someone asked the question, hey, well, how do we, change our image, or how do we, or what can the normal person do? And the answer is simple. To believe in the town, to defend the town, to believe in Rock Island as much as you believe in the people of Rock Island.
You know what I mean? Because as we believe, it's a lot of our volunteers out here that love people, right? That love people. But Rock Island will move forward along with the people if we love, protect, and respect the town like we do the people of the town.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because there's some people out here, like I said, we can go to a food pantry. We can go volunteer our time. We could do all this. We can do all that. Loving the people, but still would have nothing good to say about Rock Island. Where are we getting now?
Yeah.
Nowhere.
Yeah.
But when we start repping the town, like I said, like we love the people of the town, or like we want to help, then that's why we take the means that we have and make it good up out of it.
Yeah.
Synergy, things will come out of nowhere. Blessings will come, to Rock Island when we start to love Rock Island. Right now, we love the people, but we don't love the city. And that has to change. So through the people, I'm showing my love for the city.
Yeah.
And through the city, I'm showing love for the people. That's the job of a mayor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be a good place to stop, because
Yeah.
I don't know how you could end it on a better note than that.
Okay, well, hey.
But we should do this again.
Listen, I want to do it all the time.
Yeah.
This is so cool and comfortable.
Yeah, but then you'd have to come down to the new studio.
Yes.
Check that out.
And after you and I, Jim, do whatever y'all gonna do in there. Let's have a ribbon cutting.
Yeah. Okay. I need to make it look cute, because right now it's just one big empty room.
Whatever.
Yeah, and I think obviously there's lots of places to have discussions and conversations, but I'm hoping it could become a place where, maybe even people around our age from our high school could come together and just sit in a room and be like, think about ideas.
Yes.
I always said my dream job was to work at a think tank where you just think about stuff.
Yes. That always has intrigued me too.
Yeah, what is that?
I used to think of the word like think tank, like, man, that's
a good job.
Yeah,
Just
like the
think
war
about
room.
stuff. Yeah.
The war room. So
But just a little think tank. So maybe we can get some of our classmates together too.
And it'll be perfect timing because, like I said, us 80s babies, we are and we should be approaching and stepping into not only leadership positions, but senior leadership positions. So we are the policy makers now.
Yeah, nobody's coming to fix this town.
Nobody. It's us.
It's us.
Just like they said in that, like, I forget the movie, but there is no upstairs. There is no them, they. There's no one coming to save us. This is it. The people in this room, it's up to us.
Yeah.
It's nobody else. And like I said, when we realize that, and when we start acting that way, we'll be unstoppable.
Yeah, I like it. So I'll be back. We'll talk again.
Yeah.
I really appreciate how, open and candid, and I mean, you're not very guarded as a human being.
No.
I'm sure this isn't even normal. I said that already.
Yeah.
And then can I tell one story about you?
Yeah.
Do you know what it's going to be?
No, I don't.
So I was kind of a wild child, but when I was in college and I'd come back from school and I went to a New Year's Eve party.
Okay.
And I had probably too much to drink.
Okay.
You remember this, right?
Well, remind me. Remind me. I don't want to,
So at some point, I was probably like fighting with Jim or being dramatic. I was probably 20, 21.
Okay.
And so I'd gone to a party. If you went all the way down the hill on 30th Street, I think one of our high school friends had an apartment there, and we went to a party at his house.
I was there too?
I don't know. You weren't at the party.
Okay.
But at one point, I decided I was leaving, and it was probably 1:00 in the morning, and it was like snowing outside.
Okay.
And I walked all the way from there, all the way to my house on 30th Street, but around maybe Hy-Vee, or maybe it was more like by the Greek church.
Yeah.
It's 1:00 in the morning. I'm all by myself. It's snowing. I'm probably wobbling as I walk down the street.
Yeah.
And you, and I don't know if anyone was with you, but you pulled up. Annika? Is that you?
Yeah. Yeah.
You shouldn't be out here walking around by yourself at night. Do you want to ride home? And then you let me get in your car and you took me to my house and dropped me off, and what a good Samaritan.
I remember that. I remember that.
Yeah, and then I didn't see you for a while.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I've gotten my act together since then. So.
Well, we all have.
Yeah.
Look around. We all have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that was very nice of you to,
anytime.
make sure I got home safe when I was.
Anytime.
Yeah, probably being a dramatic girlfriend, like at 20, just.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah, that was very kind, but. Yeah, well, I am so happy that I already knew you, so that I could get the inside scoop here.
Yeah. Like I said, I look forward to us doing this again.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing you in Jim's new location.
Yeah.
As a city official, I thank you for investing in downtown. I thank you for bringing extra life and energy to the downtown. And also as a city official, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to the community, to give them a deeper look inside the office, the functions thereof, and even Ashley Harris. So I appreciate it.
Well, I just know what a good person you are, and I want other people to know that too. So
thank you.
They're all going to find out, but
thank you.
It's I'm just so proud of you representing the class of '99 too.
Yes, to the full.
Yeah.
To the full.
Yeah.
Like I said,
making us all proud.
Yes, and it's our time. Annika, it's our time.
Yeah, awesome. Well,
it's our time.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and then I have to make sure I do all this right, so we don't lose it.
Hey, make sure you do it right.
Okay.
Or we'll have to meet again.